Greetings, Elderly Vegan here, and welcome to episode 4 regarding the 12 hallmarks of aging and how to live a longer, healthier life by slowing down these classic hallmarks with a whole food, plant-based diet. In this episode, I'll be discussing how proteins have the potential to become dysfunctional as we age. And the reason they're no longer functional is primarily due to the fact that they become structurally misfolded. And there's a tendency for these misfolded proteins to accumulate over time, and as such, they become troublemakers by causing age-related diseases, and the technical term for this hallmark is one I'm sure you will love. It's referred to as loss of proteostasis. But make no mistake, these useless, misfolded proteins accumulate over time and ultimately become incompatible with life. So whatever we can do to address this hallmark of aging is to our benefit. Anyway, these dysfunctional proteins lead to muscle loss, referred to as sarcopenia, which then makes one prone to falls and fractures. Yet they also contribute to brain and nerve decline, and this plays a role in memory loss in conditions like Alzheimer's disease. Furthermore, these defective proteins also have the potential to weaken the immune system, contribute to organ failure, and it also leads to weakened skin, hair, and bones. But another key process is the removal and the recycling of these non-functional proteins. The technical term for this is autophagy, which literally means self-eating. And when it comes to activating the process of cleaning up the cellular garbage, I will mention several ways to accomplish this. Historically, fasting has been recognized as the gold standard for this process. But new research indicates there's a phytonutrient called resveratrol, which apparently activates autophagy. However, it should be mentioned that food sources for this nutrient do not contain a sufficient amount of resveratrol to activate autophagy. It will have to be taken in supplement form. And I might also mention that the Elderly Vegan has taken resveratrol for several years now. So hopefully this has contributed to the elimination of some non-functional proteins. But as I did the research for this video, I learned that my favorite health-promoting phytonutrient in green tea, abbreviated as EGCG, also induces autophagy. And for what it's worth, the reason why EGCG is my favorite polyphenol is not only because the regular consumption of green tea is associated with a whopping 22% reduction in all-cause mortality, but because EGCG is so easy peasy to remember and spares one the pain of saying what it actually stands for: epigallocatechin 3 gallate. Anyway, other ways to activate autophagy include high-intensity aerobic exercise and high-intensity strength training. And as for individual foods which are either directly or indirectly involved with autophagy, include tempeh and sprouted legumes, lentils, chickpeas, and mung beans, green peas, broccoli, kale, and Brussels sprouts, spinach, collard greens, and Swiss chard, onions and leeks, sweet potatoes and carrots, blueberries, blackberries, pomegranates, and apples, kiwis and grapes, quinoa, amaranth, and buckwheat, sorghum, pumpkin seeds, hemp seeds, and hazelnuts, walnuts, sunflower seeds, and pistachios, and mushrooms like lion's mane, reishi, maitake, and shiitake, spices like cinnamon, turmeric, ginger, cloves, and allspice. And don't let me forget seaweed. It too helps out in the healing process. At any rate, these foods help in many ways, and each one mentioned has its own benefits. Some supply a complete amino acid profile or provide trace minerals needed to properly fold and rebuild new proteins, while others directly support autophagy in the recycling of cellular garbage. And others specialize in specific nutrients which aid in the process of the responsible folding of proteins while shielding them from oxidative damage. Yet there's another key process with regard to minimizing the negative outcomes of misfolded proteins, and that is the role played by what are called stress proteins. These proteins are usually referred to as heat shock proteins, but that's only because they were first discovered following heat therapy. As a matter of fact, these same proteins are also formed after cold therapy, for that matter. Be that as it may, stress proteins act as the cell's front line of defense by either preventing misfolded proteins from accumulating into cellular garbage, or they're able to repair some of the damage by refolding them correctly. And if they cannot repair the damage, they target them for destruction and recycling. And you might find it interesting that one can significantly increase their own number of stress proteins by engaging in either cold or heat therapy. And that is no doubt why these forms of therapy have been shown to extend human lifespan. And again, the elderly vegan has engaged in heat therapy going on 20 years in the form of hot baths. So hopefully, it has resulted in the production of heat shock proteins, otherwise known as stress proteins. And this would be a classic example of a form of stress which, if it fails to kill you outright, it makes you stronger in the long run. Finally, foods to be avoided include those with a high glycemic index, which means they are rapidly converted into blood sugar, fried foods and ultra-processed foods, the group 1 carcinogens, which includes all processed meats like bacon, bologna, and sausages, and any charred or blackened meats. Also, avoid highly roasted nuts, and roasted is the key word here, and avoid oils which have been reused at high temperature cooking, which virtually eliminates all of the fried foods you would find at a typical fast food restaurant. Well, I hope this video was helpful by providing you with a basic understanding of the hallmark of aging, where our proteins have the tendency to become non-functional as we age, and how to adjust your eating habits accordingly to your good health, the elderly vegan.